The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning, cream-colored and elegant, with gold-embossed lettering that practically screamed expensive taste. My hands didn't shake as I opened it. I'd known this was coming. After all, my ex-wife had made sure everyone knew about her upcoming nuptials to the man she'd left me for. "You're cordially invited to celebrate the marriage of..." I didn't need to read the names. I knew them by heart. Knew them from the late-night text messages I'd discovered, from the receipts for hotel rooms and expensive dinners, from the perfume that wasn't hers clinging to his collar when they'd met for work. My divorce had been finalized 8 months ago. 8 months since I'd confronted her with the evidence, since she'd cried and apologized, then in the same breath defended her actions. "You were never there," she'd said. "He makes me feel alive." As if my 60-hour work weeks to pay for our lifestyle had been some personal failing rather than sacrifice. The divorce had been mercifully quick. No children, thankfully. She'd wanted the house, I'd given it to her. Wanted half my retirement, she got it. I'd signed everything without argument, much to my lawyer's frustration. But I had my reasons. I wanted her gone, completely, so I could begin the work of rebuilding. And rebuild I had. I looked around my new apartment, smaller but mine, filled with furniture I'd chosen, decorated in colors I actually liked. I'd lost weight, started running again like I did in college. Reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. Started therapy. The man I was becoming barely resembled the exhausted, taken-for-granted husband I'd been. But I'll admit, when that invitation arrived, something dark stirred in my chest. Not jealousy, that had died months ago. No, this was something else. A desire, perhaps, for cosmic justice. For her to understand, even briefly, the betrayal I'd felt. I RSVP'd yes. My friends thought I was crazy. "Why torture yourself?" my best friend demanded over beers. "She's not worth your time." "I need closure," I lied. The truth was more complicated. I wanted to see her marry him. Wanted to watch her pledge forever to a man who'd helped her break her promises to me. Wanted to see if that choice brought her the happiness she'd been so certain it would. The wedding was planned for the Riverside estate, a venue we'd once toured for our own 10th anniversary vow renewal, an event that never happened because she'd been too busy planning her affair. The irony wasn't lost on me. As the day approached, I found myself strangely calm. I bought a new suit, got a haircut, even started seeing someone casually, a kind woman from my running group who asked nothing of me but honesty and time, both of which I found I could now give freely. The morning of the wedding, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello. Is this?" The voice hesitated. "Is this the ex-husband?" I should have hung up. Instead, curiosity won. "Who's asking?" Someone who thinks you should know something before today's ceremony. About the groom. My heart began to pound. I'm listening. What the caller told me in the next 5 minutes changed everything. He was a landlord, he explained, of a small apartment downtown. An apartment my ex-wife's lover had been renting for the past 3 years. An apartment where he'd brought my wife, yes, but also others. Many others. "I recognized the wedding announcement in the paper," the landlord said. "Saw her picture and remembered her. She seemed nice, always polite when I'd see her there. I've been wrestling with my conscience about this. My sister went through something similar, married a cheater who never stopped cheating. Destroyed her. I couldn't just say nothing." He gave me details. Times, dates, descriptions of other women. He'd kept records because the tenant had repeatedly violated noise complaints from neighbors. He even had security camera footage from the building's entrance. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I think she should know what she's marrying. And I think it might mean more coming from someone at the wedding than a stranger's phone call." I tried reaching her, her numbers unlisted, and emails bounced back. An idea began forming. Terrible, petty, perfect. What if you told her yourself? I suggested. As a wedding guest. There was a long pause. I couldn't get in without an invitation. "What if I gave you mine?" Another pause, longer this time. Would you really do that? I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Thought about every lie, every gaslighting conversation where she'd made me feel crazy for my suspicions, every time she'd come home smelling like him and told me I was imagining things. Yes, I said. I really would. But I want to be there to see it. Is there any way we could both attend? The landlord, he said his name was Richard, thought for a moment. The venue will have a capacity limit, but these things are usually loosely enforced during cocktail hour. If you arrived separately, stayed quiet, one of you in the ceremony and one slipping in after. Let's do it, I said. We planned it carefully over the next few hours. Richard would use my invitation to attend the ceremony. I would arrive during the reception, slip in among the crowd. Richard would wait until the toasts, then stand and deliver his message. I would be there to witness her face when her perfect new beginning crumbled. Was it cruel? Probably. Was it petty? Absolutely. Did I care? Not even a little. Sometimes, I told myself as I pressed my suit that evening, the universe needs a helping hand with karma. The Riverside estate looked like something from a fairy tale as I pulled into the overflow parking lot. White roses climbed trellises, fairy lights were strung through ancient oak trees, and a string quartet played softly in the distance. My ex-wife had always dreamed big, and clearly, her new husband's money was making those dreams reality. I waited in my car, watching guests arrive in their elegant attire. I recognized many of them, her family, our former couple friends who'd chosen sides, colleagues from her marketing firm. Each arrival felt like a small knife twist, a reminder of the life we'd shared that she'd discarded so easily. My phone buzzed. Richard, I'm in. Ceremony starting in 5. She looks happy. Of course she did. She'd gotten everything she wanted, the passionate affair, the wealthy lover, the picture-perfect wedding. For now. I waited 20 more minutes, until I heard the distant sounds of the ceremony concluding, the eruption of applause. Then I grabbed the sport coat I'd brought, slipped it on over my casual shirt, and made my way toward the venue. The cocktail hour was being held in the estate's garden, and the crowd was substantial, at least 200 people milling about with champagne flutes and appetizers. I blended in easily, just another face in a sea of celebrants. No one questioned my presence. No one even looked twice. I spotted her immediately. She wore a fitted white gown that probably cost more than my first car, her dark hair swept up in an intricate style. She was radiant, laughing at something her new husband was saying, her hand possessively on his arm. He was tall, distinguished-looking with silver-threaded hair, probably 15 years her senior. Old money, if the watch on his wrist was any indication. Looking at her, I felt nothing. No love, no anger, not even satisfaction yet. Just a strange emptiness where she used to live in my heart. Excuse me, are you with the bride or groom? An elderly woman appeared at my elbow, smiling warmly. Oh, we're old friends, I said vaguely. Isn't it wonderful? Such a beautiful ceremony. Though between you and me, she leaned in conspiratorially, I always thought it was a bit rushed. They've only been together a year. But what do I know? I'm just the groom's aunt, nobody listens to me. Only a year officially, I thought. 3 years if you counted from when the affair started while he was married to me. I excused myself and found a corner where I could observe without being obvious. I finally spotted Richard across the garden. He was medium height, unremarkable in a dark suit, the kind of person who could fade into any crowd. Our eyes met briefly, and he gave me a nearly imperceptible nod. The cocktail hour felt endless. I watched my ex-wife work the room like the social butterfly she'd always been, introducing her new husband to relatives, posing for countless photos, basking in the attention. She looked so certain, so secure in her choices. I almost felt bad about what was coming. Almost. Finally, staff began herding guests toward the reception hall. It was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river, tables draped in ivory linens, centerpieces of white orchids and candles. I found a seat at a table near the back, positioned where I could see the head table but wouldn't be immediately noticeable. Richard was seated closer to the front, I noticed. Better for what he needed to do. Dinner was served, multiple courses, each more elaborate than the last. Wine flowed freely. The energy in the room was joyful, celebratory. My ex-wife and her husband couldn't stop touching each other, whispering, kissing. The perfect portrait of newlywed bliss. Then came the toasts. The best man went first, telling funny stories about the groom's college days, making gentle jokes about him finally being caught. The maid of honor followed, my ex-wife's sister, who gave a surprisingly emotional speech about love and second chances that made my jaw clench. Sometimes, she said, tears in her eyes, we have to be brave enough to choose happiness, even when it's complicated. Complicated. That was one word for it. The room applauded. Glasses clinked. The couple kissed for what felt like the 100th time. The DJ was about to start the music when Richard stood up. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice cutting through the chatter. "I'd like to say a few words, if I may." The room fell quiet. My ex-wife looked confused, trying to place him. Her husband's expression was politely expectant but slightly annoyed at the interruption. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Richard continued, moving toward the front of the room. "I know I'm not on the official toast list, but I felt compelled to stand up and acknowledge this union, because I've played a rather significant role in your relationship, even if you didn't know it." He had everyone's attention now. My ex-wife's sister whispered something, probably asking who he was. I leaned forward, heart pounding. "You see," Richard said, his voice steady and clear, "I'm a landlord here in the city. For the past 3 years, I've rented a small apartment on the east side. The tenant has been quite regular, quite reliable with rent. Always paid on time." The groom's face had gone very still. My ex-wife was frowning, not yet understanding. "I recognized both of you from your engagement announcement in the paper," Richard continued. "The photos were quite good. And I realized, I'd seen you both before. Many times, in fact. Coming and going from that apartment." You could have heard a pin drop. My ex-wife's hand had moved to her throat, her face draining of color as understanding began to dawn. "And here's where I felt I needed to speak up," Richard said, his tone almost apologetic now. "Because while I've seen the bride at that apartment quite regularly over the past year or so, she wasn't the only woman I saw there. In fact, that's enough." The groom had stood abruptly, his face ashen. "I don't know who you are or what game you're playing." "No game, sir. Just truth. I have records, if you're interested. Security footage from the building entrance. My conscience wouldn't let me stay silent while this woman married a man who's been systematically unfaithful to her just as he was unfaithful to his previous marriage." The room exploded into chaos. The reception hall transformed from a celebration into a circus in seconds. Voices erupted from every corner, gasps, shocked exclamations, people pulling out phones to capture the spectacle. My ex-wife had shot to her feet, her face cycling through confusion, horror, and dawning realization. "This is insane," she shouted, but her voice cracked. "Who even are you?" "Security. Someone get security." Her new husband, I couldn't bring myself to think of him with any more dignity than the groom, had gone absolutely rigid. His face wasn't just pale anymore. It was grey, the color of old concrete. His eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal seeking escape. "I have proof," Richard said calmly, pulling out his phone. "I can show you timestamps from the building security system. Dates, times. Multiple women, I'm afraid. The blonde who came every Wednesday afternoon for 6 months. The redhead who had a key. There. You son of a bitch." The groom lunged toward Richard, but the best man caught him, holding him back. "You come into my wedding and spread lies." "Lies." My ex-wife's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. She turned to face her husband, and I could see her hands shaking. "David, what is he talking about? What apartment?" I noticed she'd used his name, David. Funny how I'd never let myself think of him as anything but the other man or her lover. Giving him a name made him too real, too human. David's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Sweetheart, this is clearly some kind of setup, someone trying to ruin our day." "The apartment on 47th Street," Richard interjected helpfully. Unit 304. You've been renting it for 3 years now. Signed the lease yourself under your LLC. I can show her the paperwork if you'd like. My ex-wife staggered backward, caught by her sister. 47th Street? David, you told me that was your company's storage space. You said you needed somewhere to keep inventory samples and, oh my God. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, all those times you said you had to check on inventory. How many? The question came from David's aunt, the sweet elderly woman I'd spoken to earlier. She'd stood up, her face hard as stone. How many women? Richard consulted his phone with the air of someone reading a grocery list. I documented 7 different women over the course of the lease. Some were regular visitors, others more sporadic. Though I should note, the bride was certainly the most frequent in the past year. 7. The number hung in the air like smoke. I watched my ex-wife's face crumble, watched her knees actually buckle. Her sister and mother caught her, easing her into a chair. She looked exactly how I'd felt 8 months ago when I discovered her affair. Shattered, disbelieving, like the ground had opened up beneath her feet. I should have felt triumphant. This was what I'd come for, wasn't it? To see her face the same betrayal she'd inflicted on me. To watch her perfect new life implode before it had even begun. But instead, I felt hollow. Watching her suffer didn't fill the empty space she'd left. It just created more emptiness. David was desperately trying to regain control. This is character assassination. I'm calling my lawyer. Your lawyer? His aunt's voice was icy. David, is any of this true? The silence that followed was answer enough. David's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. Around the room, people were gathering their things, whispering, staring. The photographer had stopped taking pictures. The DJ had cut the music. Even the waitstaff had frozen in place, trapped in the world's most uncomfortable dinner service. I need to see the evidence, my ex-wife said quietly. Her voice had gone flat, emotionless, the tone of someone in shock. Show me. Richard moved closer, angling his phone so she could see the screen. I couldn't make out the images from where I sat, but I watched her face as she scrolled through whatever he was showing her. With each swipe, she seemed to diminish, to fold in on herself. That's the woman from your office, she whispered. Your assistant. You told me she was married, that she was. I can explain, David started. And her. Isn't that your ex-wife's best friend? Her voice was rising now, shock giving way to fury. You told me you never spoke to anyone from your first marriage anymore. You said you'd cut all those ties, that you wanted a fresh start with me. The ex-wife's best friend. I hadn't known that detail. Apparently, David was an equal opportunity cheater, betraying everyone in his orbit. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. Everyone needs to calm down, David's best man attempted, his voice carrying the false heartiness of someone trying to defuse a bomb with duct tape and prayer. This is clearly a misunderstanding that the couple can work through in private. A misunderstanding. My ex-wife turned on him with such venom that he actually stepped back. He's been keeping an apartment to sleep with other women. Multiple other women. During our entire relationship. What exactly is there to misunderstand? Sweetheart, David reached for her. She slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me. The mother of the bride stood up, her face rigid with fury and humiliation. This wedding is over. Everyone leave. Now. But no one moved. It was like watching a car crash, horrible, but impossible to look away from. My ex-wife had started pacing, her expensive dress rustling with each agitated step. I left my husband for you, she said, and her voice broke on the words. I destroyed my marriage, lost half my friends, disappointed my parents, all because you convinced me we had something special. Something real. We do. David insisted. This doesn't change what we have. What we have. She laughed, a jagged, ugly sound. We have lies, David. We have an entire relationship built on sneaking around and deception. I just thought I was the exception, the one you'd finally be faithful to. But I was just another woman in your rotation, wasn't I?" David's silence was damning. I watched the realization wash over her face, the understanding that she hadn't been special, hadn't been different, hadn't been worth changing for. She'd been convenient, available, willing, but never unique. "Get out," she whispered. "Get out of my sight. Honey, please, if we could just talk in private. Get out." The scream tore from her throat, raw and primal. "Get out, get out, get out." David looked around the room, perhaps hoping for an ally, but found only hostile or pitying faces. Even his best man had taken a step away. Finally, he straightened his tie, tried to salvage some dignity, and walked toward the exit. At the door, he paused, opened his mouth as if to speak, then thought better of it and disappeared into the night. The silence he left behind was deafening. My ex-wife stood in the center of the reception hall in her wedding dress, surrounded by overturned chairs and abandoned champagne glasses, and slowly sank to the floor. Her mother rushed to her side, but she waved her away. She just sat there, this woman who'd once been my wife, her dreams in tatters around her. Richard quietly made his way toward the exit. As he passed my table, our eyes met again. He gave a small nod, job done, and left. People began to disperse, gathering belongings, calling cars, whispering. The bride's family clustered around her, trying to coax her up, but she seemed immovable, locked in place by the weight of her poor choices. I should have left then. Should have slipped out satisfied that karma had done its work. But I found myself standing, moving through the thinning crowd, drawn by something I couldn't name. Her sister saw me first. Her eyes widened in shock. "What are you?" My ex-wife looked up, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. "You," she breathed. "You were behind this." I could have lied. Could have feigned innocence, pretended I'd just been an innocent guest who'd witnessed the spectacle along with everyone else. But I found I was tired of lies, tired of the games, the deception, the pretense that had poisoned everything. I admitted simply. Her face transformed, shock morphing into rage, then something worse, understanding. "That landlord. You brought him here. You planned this." "He called me," I corrected. "Told me what he knew. I just facilitated the truth coming out today instead of next month or next year." She struggled to her feet, her sister and mother trying to help, but she shook them off. Even in her devastation, even sitting in the wreckage of her wedding, she was proud. I'd always admired that about her, even when it manifested as stubbornness. "You did this for revenge," she said, her voice shaking. "You came here to humiliate me." "I came here because you sent me an invitation to your wedding to the man you cheated on me with," I replied, keeping my voice level. "You wanted me to witness your happiness. I just made sure everyone witnessed the truth instead." "You had no right." "Didn't I?" The words came out harder than I'd intended. "You destroyed our marriage. Lied to my face for months. Made me question my own sanity when I knew something was wrong. And then you married him like I was just a chapter you'd closed, like our 7 years together meant nothing." They meant something. Tears were streaming down her face now, cutting tracks through her carefully applied makeup. "But we weren't happy, you know we weren't. I was drowning in our marriage, and David made me feel special." I finished. "Seen? Alive? Yeah, I remember the speech. The same one you gave me when I found out. But here's what you never understood, he made all of them feel that way. Every single woman. It wasn't about you. It was never about you." The cruelty of my words hit her like a physical blow. She staggered, and this time when her mother caught her, she didn't pull away. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this to me?" I opened my mouth to explain, about the pain, the anger, the long nights wondering what I'd done wrong. About the satisfaction I'd anticipated feeling. But standing there, watching her wedding dress drag on the floor and her careful makeup run in black rivulets, I realized something profound. "I don't know anymore," I said honestly. "I thought I wanted you to feel what I felt. To understand the betrayal. But watching it happen, it doesn't feel the way I thought it would. You're a monster, her sister spat, moving protectively in front of her. Maybe I was. Maybe facilitating this public humiliation made me no better than them. But I'd spent 8 months being the bigger person, taking the high road, signing away everything without a fight. Just once, I'd wanted her to face consequences. I should go, I said quietly. Wait. My ex-wife's voice stopped me. She pushed past her sister, moving closer. Up close, I could see the full extent of her devastation. Puffy eyes, trembling lips, the wild panic of someone whose entire life had just imploded. Is there any chance? She swallowed hard. Can we talk? Later, I mean. When this is all. No. The word came out gentler than I'd expected. There's nothing left to talk about. But I made a mistake. David is a liar and a cheat, but what we had, you and I, that was real. We had history. We could try again, start over.
He stared at her, genuinely shocked.
You can't be serious. I am. I see it now. I see how I threw away something good for someone who treated you exactly the way you treated me. The interruption was harsh but necessary. You're not sorry you cheated. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your fairy tale ending turned into a nightmare. But if David had been faithful, you'd still be married to him, and I'd still be the fool you left behind. That's not true. It is. And even if it weren't, did you really think I'd take you back? After everything? I shook my head, almost laughing at the absurdity. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your safety net for when your bad decisions blow up in your face. I loved you, she insisted, desperate now. You loved the security I provided. The stability. But you weren't in love with me, probably not for years before you started the affair. And I'm okay with that now. It took me a while, but I'm okay. This was true, I realized as I said it. Somewhere between planning this revenge and watching it unfold, I'd let go. The anger that had driven me here had burned itself out, leaving behind something cleaner. Not forgiveness, exactly, but acceptance. Please, she whispered. Don't leave me like this. Everyone knows now, everyone saw. Everyone needed to see. They needed to know who David really is. And maybe who you really are too. I took a step back. You'll survive this. You're strong, you're smart, you'll rebuild. But not with me. Never with me. I turned to leave, but her voice called out one last time, raw and broken. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter now, but I'm sorry for what I did to you. You deserved better. I paused, not looking back. Yeah, I did. As I walked out of the riverside estate, leaving behind the chaos and tears and shattered dreams, I felt lighter than I had in months. The night air was cool and clean, washing away the heavy perfume of the venue. I could hear the river in the distance, flowing steadily onward like time itself. My phone buzzed. Richard, that was intense. You okay? Me? Yeah. Thanks for doing that. I know it wasn't easy. Richard, my sister says karma's a bitch. Figured I'd help it along. Take care of yourself. I would. I was already doing that. Had been for 8 months now. This night wasn't really about revenge, I realized. It was about closure. About seeing clearly that the person I'd mourned losing wasn't worth mourning at all. I drove home to my small apartment with its furniture I'd chosen and its walls painted colors I liked. I thought about the woman from my running group, about our upcoming dinner date. I thought about my therapist's words, healing isn't about forgetting. It's about reaching a point where the memory no longer controls you. I wasn't healed yet, but I was healing. And that was enough. 3 months later, I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop, the one that had become part of my Saturday morning routine, when I saw her. She looked different. Thinner, tired, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail instead of the styled perfection she used to maintain. She wore jeans and a sweatshirt. I'd rarely seen her in anything so casual during our marriage. She was alone, staring at her phone with the kind of intensity that suggested she was avoiding looking at the world around her. I could have left. Should have. Probably. We'd had no contact since the wedding, and I'd been content with that silence. But something made me stay, made me watch her for a moment before she felt my gaze and looked up. The recognition in her eyes was immediate, followed by a flash of something. Fear? Shame? She half stood, as if to flee, then slowly sat back down. We stared at each other across the crowded coffee shop, years of history hanging between us like fog. Finally, I picked up my coffee and walked over. Mind if I sit? She shook her head mutely, and I settled into the chair across from her. How have you been? I asked, then immediately felt stupid. How did I think she'd been? Surviving, she said quietly. Taking it day by day. You? Actually doing pretty well. She nodded, her fingers fidgeting with her coffee cup. I heard you're seeing someone. Sarah told me. Sarah, her sister. I was mildly surprised they were still talking to mutual acquaintances about me. Casually, I confirmed. It's still new. That's good. I'm glad. The silence stretched between us, awkward and heavy. Around us, the coffee shop hummed with normal Saturday morning activity, laptops clicking, friends laughing, the hiss of the espresso machine. Ordinary life, continuing despite everything. I've been in therapy, she said suddenly. Twice a week. My therapist says I have a pattern of self-sabotage, that I was trying to escape feeling trapped by creating chaos instead of addressing the real problems. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. The wedding was annulled, she continued. Turns out there were enough grounds. David didn't even fight it. He's already moved on to someone else, from what I hear. 25 years old, works at his gym. She laughed bitterly. I guess I should have seen that coming. I'm sorry, I said, and was surprised to find I meant it at least partially. Are you? Really? She looked at me directly for the first time. You orchestrated the destruction of my wedding. You made sure I was humiliated in front of everyone I know. And you're sorry. I'm sorry it turned out this way for you. Not sorry for what I did. You needed to know the truth about David before you bound your life to his. Did I? Or did you just need to feel like you'd won something? The accusation hung in the air. I considered it honestly, turning it over in my mind like a stone. Maybe both things are true, I admitted. Maybe I wanted you to hurt the way you hurt me. But that doesn't make the information false. He was cheating on you. Extensively. You deserved to know. She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee. My mother won't speak to me. She says I humiliated the family, that I should have known better than to leave a stable marriage for a man I barely knew. My father paid for that wedding, $50,000, gone in an evening. That wasn't my fault, I said firmly. You made the choices that led to that wedding. David made the choices that destroyed it. I just expedited the revelation. You're right, she said, and I was surprised by the admission. You're absolutely right. I keep trying to blame you because it's easier than accepting responsibility. My therapist calls it deflection. She smiled weakly. I'm learning a lot of vocabulary. Therapy's good. I've been going too. Yeah. She looked genuinely curious. Does it help? More than I expected. Turns out I had a lot to work through too. Not just the divorce, but patterns from my family, ways I'd learned to cope with abandonment, why I stayed in a marriage that wasn't making either of us happy. She flinched at that. I did love you, you know. In the beginning. I think I just forgot how. Got so focused on what was wrong that I couldn't see what was right anymore. I know. I did the same thing. We were both pretty checked out by the end. That doesn't excuse what I did, she said quickly. The affair, the lying. There's no excuse for that. I could have left honestly, could have ended things before starting something new. Instead, I took the coward's way out. This was new, this self-awareness, this willingness to own her mistakes. The woman I'd been married to would have found a way to justify everything, to make her actions someone else's fault.
What are you doing now? I asked. Where are you living?
With my sister, actually. The house sold, I couldn't afford it on my own, and staying there felt like living in a mausoleum anyway. Too many ghosts.
She paused.
I kept thinking about what you said that night. About being a backup plan.
And you were right.
That's exactly what I was trying to do. I panicked when David turned out to be a fraud, and my first instinct was to run back to safety. To you. Like you were a hotel I could check back into.
But I'm not.
No.
You're not.
You're a person I hurt badly, and I had no right to ask you for anything, let alone a second chance. She took a shaky breath. I'm trying to learn how to be alone. How to fix what's broken in me before I inflict it on someone else. That's really mature. It's really hard, she corrected. I hate being alone. Hate having to face myself without distractions. But my therapist says it's necessary. Says I need to figure out who I am when I'm not defining myself through a relationship. I thought about my own journey, the months I'd spent learning the same lessons. It does get easier, I offered. The alone part. You start to find things that are just yours, things that make you happy without needing someone else to validate them.
Like what?
Like running. I run almost every day now. Never did that when we were married. You always said it was boring. But I love it. Love the rhythm, the endorphins, the way my mind clears. I've run 2 half marathons in the past few months.
Really?
That's amazing. She seemed genuinely pleased. I've been painting. Nothing good, but it's therapeutic. Letting myself be bad at something, you know? Not needing to be perfect. We talked for another hour, carefully navigating the minefield of our shared past. She told me about her job, how she'd taken a demotion to get away from the office gossip after the wedding fiasco. I told her about my promotion, the big project I was leading. We talked about mutual friends, shared memories, the mundane details of separate lives. It wasn't closure, exactly. Closure suggested an ending, a final chapter. This felt more like perspective. Like 2 people who'd been too close to a painting finally stepping back far enough to see the whole picture. I should go, she said eventually, checking her phone. Therapy appointment in an hour. Yeah, I should get going too. Plans this afternoon. We stood awkwardly, neither quite sure how to end this unexpected encounter. Thank you, she said finally, for sitting with me. You didn't have to. I know. Are you happy? Really? I considered the question seriously. I'm getting there. Happier than I was. Happy enough. She nodded, something like peace crossing her features. Good. That's good. You deserve to be happy. So do you, I found myself saying. Eventually. When you've done the work. Maybe. She hesitated, then extended her hand. Goodbye. For real this time. I shook her hand, felt the familiar warmth of her skin one last time. Goodbye. I watched her leave the coffee shop, disappearing into the Saturday morning crowd. And I realized something profound. I didn't feel angry anymore. Didn't feel vindicated or superior or hurt. I just felt free. The woman from my running group, Jennifer, texted asking if I was still coming to the park this afternoon. She'd been teaching me photography, sharing her passion the way I'd shared running with her. We'd been taking things slow, both of us carrying wounds from previous relationships, both of us cautious about promising too much too soon. On my way, I texted back. As I left the coffee shop, I thought about revenge and karma, about choices and consequences. The night of the wedding, I'd felt like an agent of justice, delivering earned punishment. But sitting with my ex-wife today, seeing her actually taking responsibility and trying to change, I realized something important. Revenge hadn't healed me. Time had. Therapy had. Building a new life had. The wedding disaster had given me a moment of satisfaction, sure, but it was everything that came after, the running, the friends, the quiet Saturday mornings with good coffee and no drama, that had actually made me whole again. My phone buzzed with a message from Richard, the landlord. We'd kept in touch occasionally, strange allies bonded by that one dramatic evening. Saw your ex's Instagram. Looks like she's doing better. You okay with that? I smiled and typed back, yeah, I'm good. Hope she finds what she's looking for. And I meant it. Not because I was a saint or because I'd forgiven everything. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. But because her happiness or unhappiness no longer affected mine. She was no longer the main character in my story, not even the villain. She was just someone I used to know. Someone who'd taught me important lessons about myself, even if she'd taught them painfully. I drove to the park where Jennifer was waiting, camera in hand, her smile bright and uncomplicated. As I parked and walked toward her, I felt the last weight of my old marriage lift away like a bird taking flight. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply living well, moving forward, and refusing to let someone else's poor choices define your future. Ready to capture some great shots? Jennifer called out. Ready, I said. And I was. Ready for this new chapter, this new life, these new possibilities. The past would always be there, a collection of scars and lessons learned. But it no longer had the power to hold me back. I was free. Finally. Completely free. And that was worth more than any revenge could ever be.